I was just going to open it up. Judge has a PowerPoint about information that you need to know, but I was going to open it up and see how much you guys know about opioid addiction. So did you know that 90 people daily in America die from opioid overdose? 90. Think about that. How many people that is. Think about the population of Edina, and then think about 90 of those being wiped out on a daily basis. When I first came to drug court, we didn't have a lot of opioid addiction clients. Now we have 5. Those clients started out with pain in their back. I had an old football injury. I had my knee operated on, and they were given a painkiller, which is a synthetic part of heroin. And usually they would get off of it, do physical therapy, and go on with their lives. But instead, these guys got addicted to the painkiller and started trying to find it any way they could. When one of them came into the drug court program, he was really pissed off and mad because he had to be here, because he didn't have a problem. He could quit any time. He had advanced so far into his addiction that he was taking 12 to 15 pills a day. Can you understand that, Peggers? 12, 15 pills a day. That would kill somebody. Not him, he kept going. So when he came in and got caught, part of the screening for drug court is for me to talk to them about, you know, what happened with them, what happened in their lives, things like that. And he said that he had his teeth extracted, and they gave him a painkiller for his pain in his mouth, and he said it was the best feeling in the world. And he said, I'd go to school and I would feel empowered because nothing would bother me because I was high. And I continued that. He's very young. He's getting ready to graduate the program. But I'm going to tell you, it's been a hard recovery for him, because opioid addiction is really hard to break, to get out of. The most famous opioid around here anyway, is Oxy. How many people have been prescribed Oxy for a pain issue? OxyContin, oxycodone. How does that make you feel when you take it? Sticks to your stomach? How about you guys? Does it make the pain go away? See, that's how it happens, is that, oh, you know, I'm so used to being pain-free and feel good, I'm going to take it all the time. 21 to 29% of Americans use their prescription drug painkiller the wrong way. They take too many. They take more than they should. They go back in and get more when they don't need more. It's one of those things where doctors battle with patients, patients battle doctors, and then they start doctor shopping. That's what it's called, doctor shopping. One time I confiscated a phone, and all these messages were on the phone. Who's the author? Who's the author of China Girl? Hey, did you pick up Cody yet? All these odd text messages, and I kept thinking, what the heck is he talking about? Is China Girl what is it? You know, because normally you would think, oh, just talk between people, but China Girl is fentanyl. So it's all of its code for drugs. And the author, do you know what author means in drug slang? Author means doctor. Who's your author? Your prescription. So he was asking, who's your doctor that you got fentanyl from? Did you pick up Cody? Do you know what that is? Codeine. Correct, Peg. Codeine. Did you pick up Cody? The other one, Vicodin. Vicodin's called Lorries, Vikes, things like that. So in text messages, if you aren't in part of that culture and don't know, hey, did you pick up Cody? That might mean, hey, did you pick up Cody for basketball practice, right? You wouldn't know that, would you? But as slowly as you get used to the addict and what they talk like and what they act like, day in and day out, just like your children, they're texting their friends back and forth, you see what they're texting back and forth, right? Would you think that was something out of the ordinary? Hey, did you pick up Cody? Would you say, what is this? hey, who's the author of China Girl? Maybe you would think that was a book or something they were doing in school, right? And that's how our client got away with it. Those parents saw the phone a lot, but they had no idea that's what he was asking. And finally, lots of people that get addicted to a synthetic heroin, which is an opioid, go to heroin afterwards because they cannot find the prescription drug. And heroin is just exactly like an opioid that's prescribed. So then they go to the streets, and then that's when you have a problem, because the thing is, do you know what Northeast Missouri addicts cut heroin with? Do you know what cut means? Make a bigger batch?
Dilute.
What?
Dilute.
Yes, or dilute. Do you know what they cut it with here? Which probably will make Peg Ernst go on the floor? Fentanyl. Fentanyl. Fentanyl is a huge, powerful painkiller, and we've had several overdoses and deaths from that in Northeast Missouri. But that's what they cut heroin with, to make a bigger batch. Can you imagine heroin on top of fentanyl? That would be a terrible ride, wouldn't it, Peg? Okay, I'll leave it up to Judge to finish the rest.
So you're going to be hearing a lot in the news about the opioid crisis in the country. You probably have already heard talk about it. Jane and I went to a summit where some really high-level people came to talk about the problem. Sadly, what we did was we talked about the problem, and I didn't hear one solution. It's really not anything new. It's just gotten worse. I wrote down some people who, so opioids are derivatives from opium. Heroin is one that you've heard of. But I wrote down a list of people who have died from an overdose of opioid. Elvis, Prince, John Belushi, Heath Ledger, Janis Joplin, Hank Williams. Okay, so it's not new. He died of a mixture of heroin and whiskey in the back of a car in the 50s, I think. And most sadly, just recently, Tom Petty, rock and roll singer, died of an overdose. His is an interesting situation. He was having hip pain. Turns out he had a broken hip, but he wanted to continue his tour. He has lots of people relying on him, so they gave him an opioid, and it eventually progressed to a fentanyl patch, which is serious stuff. The pain was so bad, he took some pills to go with the fentanyl patch, and it killed him. So it's not really anything new. I don't know. So we're talking about derivatives of opium, morphine, codeine, heroin, and the places where you would see it: Demerol, fentanyl, Dilaudid, methadone, and then more commonly, these are synthetic, so these are man-made forms of heroin. Oxymorphone, hydrocodone, and these are all prescribed every day for legitimate pain. The problem is they're very addictive. And so the one point I really want you to remember is if you know somebody with a football injury, or they were in a car wreck, they had a knee replacement, be very careful and watch them to make sure that they don't get addicted, particularly after the legitimate prescription runs out. And make sure that they talk with their doctor about that. Doctors are doing a way better job in the last couple of years about talking to people, having follow-up visits just to make sure that somebody's not addicted. Because these are synthetic forms of heroin. And so then the progression goes like this. I get the drug because I really do legitimately need it. I become addicted. Maybe I go to some different doctors and don't tell them about each other so that I can legitimately get a prescription, author of the prescription, that's where the word comes from, to try to continue feeding my addiction. Now I've run out of doctors. Now what am I going to do? I'm still addicted. I go to the street and I look for somebody to sell me heroin. That's how we get to the point of somebody coming into the drug court program. So this is a dopamine receptor in your brain. And the dopamine is the yellow thing. And see the triangle is an opioid. It stimulates so that twice or 3 times as much dopamine comes out, and that's the part that makes you feel good, even when you've just had surgery. You feel pretty good, right? Because the dopamine, which is what our brains release when we do things that make us happy, for lack of a better word. Big greasy cheeseburger, ooh, dopamine, okay? Co-worker patting you on the back, man, you did a really good job today, dopamine. But also these pills, and the problem is these pills are addictive. So I would recommend, if you have interest in this, Echo is doing a really good 2, 3, 4 part series, 5, 6.
We don't know how many parts. We've got 2 parts of the podcast so far.
The first podcast about it was me, sort of outlining the general problem. The second is really good, Jean Mitchell.
Jean Mitchell, the scientist from Truman University.
I've learned, like, I don't know, 100 things.
Just from a 1 hour podcast. I learned more in 1 hour than I have in years of, and I consider myself pretty well read on this kind of thing. And
the other thing I'll tell you is that this is a local problem. In 2015, over 1,000 people died of overdoses. And now I don't know every one of those cases, but I'm telling you, they're generally not suicides. They're trying to get that same feeling, and they're taking so much that it kills them. It went up to almost 1,400 in 2016. It's probably going to be about 3,000 in 2017, almost double. So it's a significant problem. And I guess the last thing the reason that happens is because with any opioid, really with any drug, the first time you take it, your brain goes wild. Like, wow, that was great. The next time, the brain adjusts. And the more you take it, the less effect it has. Because the brain is trying to get back to normal. If you're taking an opioid every day, to get the same effect as the first time, you have to take more and more and more. And then what happens on the street is they progress to more serious drugs like fentanyl, which is really serious. I'm not going to remember exactly, but like it's like maybe 5,000 times as strong. Is that right? I'm looking at you, Jane.
Yes.
Is that the one that was used to like tranquilize elephants?
That's the next.
That's carfentanil.
Yeah, that's the next one. And that's starting to kind of show up. Now, fentanyl is generally manufactured illegally for taking by mouth. There are patches, there are injections, and the reason for that is because it's so serious, you have to be very careful about how it's released, how much you give. On the street, they don't care about any of that. Is it going to make me feel good? In fact, just a couple of days ago, the Highway Patrol announced that they are not going to do any field testing of things that appear to be fentanyl because they're afraid to touch it because it might kill them, just if they touch it. Okay. So, the last thing I promise. If you have legitimate use for some of these painkillers, when you're done using them, get rid of them.
Get it one of those little safes for our hospice patients, or people who, especially the cancer patients, they're on a lot of illness.
Yeah.
I would suggest get those little safes, because you don't know, especially what cancer patient.
Yeah. If I were a drug addict
coming in
and I went to your house,
well, even a nephew, a niece,
right,
daughter,
I would go look in your medicine cabinet, and the other place I would look is like on your kitchen counter where you leave your pills. Okay, bad idea. Put them away. Last year, you all know, a couple of times a year, the sheriff will announce we're going to take pills. The DEA keeps track of all of that over the whole country. Last year, they collected on those days, and now those are people bringing their pills in voluntarily. Those are not drug addicts, okay? These are people trying to get rid of their pills. 9 million pounds of pills. 9 million pounds turned in. And that's part of the problem, too. The pills are out there, and the people that are addicted can go find them. One way or the other, relative's house or burglary or whatever. But so put them away. Don't leave them out laying around or get rid of them. But best is if you don't need them, get rid of them. Would you guys take them? I mean,
we don't have a take-back site yet.
The sheriff's office has one.
The take-back site is at City Hall, and it's a...
No, it's at the sheriff's office.
Oh, they've moved the sheriff's office.
It's at the courthouse.
okay. So there's a place you can take them so that people that are unfortunately addicted aren't, looking around for them at your house. Yeah.
They're not allowed to.
They always have.
Yeah, they're not allowed to take them there.
Anyway, find a way to get rid of them so that we don't perpetuate somebody being addicted on them. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
What's the success rate? Do you know? Treatment. I know we don't know any answers, but do you know what the closest to an answer we have as far as like solutions?
Well, I can tell you the drug court program, just yesterday, the Chief Justice of the Missouri Supreme Court said the one answer that everybody knows will work is drug court. And he asked for a big increase in funding for the drug court programs. Just with treatment, I don't really know.
I was at Jeff City 2 weeks ago, and the two big topics they discussed at the meeting I was at, which I'd be interested in hearing from people who work with people on a daily basis, is putting the naloxone in public, they're talking about pharmacists giving it with every script of opioid, and then making public people like responders, policemen, and carrying that. I don't know that gets ahead of that's kind of to curb the problem, it seems like. I don't know how much ahead we're getting with that.
Yeah, and again, it's an injection, right? If somebody's in the middle of an overdose, I'm sorry?
There's a nasal.
And it can take more than one dose.
Yeah, if that
it counteracts an overdose. And I think that's a great thing, but you're right. I mean, the horse is sort of out of the barn if we're talking about overdoses.
And then take back sites. They want take back sites. The cheapest they had found at that meeting was $40-some a dose, and they're concerned that they can take 2 or 3 doses when they've got this major drug going on that they've taken. You might have to. We
recently had an overdose out of the trailer where I went. I administered those when I was there. My officer that works with me, Matt Kellison, didn't have any. The ambulance came. She was still doing the worst we've ever seen her. They administered some air with the mist in it, trying to get her to breathe in deeply, trying to get it. And we still had a problem, and we still had to detoxify at the hospital.
Yeah.
As if it's a long acting it'll come back.
It'll come right back.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what. And sometimes they can't tell us what they took, and she couldn't tell us what she took because she didn't know. She bought some pills.
they have a big meeting now in St. Louis, and it's breaking their ambulance systems because it's so expensive, and it's, you know, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And they're doing the pharmacy tag thing too, like they're starting them out of St. Louis and out of, I think, Springfield, where doctors can go in and register, and then every time you issue a script, it goes on a checker. The pharmacist would put it in, it goes on the checker, and then we know if they're doctor hopping and picking up scripts everywhere.
Yeah, that's a thing that we have been trying to get in Missouri for a long time. There are lots of other states that already have that. Part of the problem is where we live, because it's not very far to go to Iowa to get some scripts or to Illinois to get some scripts. It's a problem. The one thing I would like you to take away from this is the problem starts with a legitimate need for painkillers and then escalates. So we're not talking about drug addicts or people, you know, laying on the sidewalk shooting up heroin. We're talking about people that have a legitimate need for the painkillers, and then it escalates because nobody's helping them or watching them at that point. And so it's very important to keep an eye out on anybody that's legitimately taking painkillers to make sure that doesn't continue on and get to be a problem. Question?
I was just going to say, I knew it was a situation. People would post on Facebook, I'd had a dental surgery or I'd had a hip replacement or something. And then there was this lady who was breaking into houses
Oh, yeah.
to get the drugs. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, you might be careful what we post on Facebook
Sure.
from time to time.
Well, and typically, everywhere I've ever known a prosecutor, the thing that causes burglaries is guns, stealing guns, and stealing drugs. No, I've not been in any of in your house, but your stuff ain't that cool. Okay, but except Justin. Justin's got a lot of cool stuff. But guns and drugs are the things that people are committing burglaries for. But at least make it hard. Put the pills away. Maybe not in the medicine cabinet. Put them where you know where they are. Put them in a kitchen cabinet, but don't leave them out laying around. So anyway, thank you all very much. Question? Yep.
So how does this compare? Do you see this? Is this now a more serious problem than methamphetamine, or how do they compare?
Nationally, it is a more serious problem than methamphetamine. Locally, state of Missouri, methamphetamine is still, most of the arrests, it's still more than this, although it's gaining. We're in a particular part of the country where methamphetamine is a problem because we have anhydrous ammonia. That is the sort of the bottom line. People can make it themselves pretty easily, and so it's still a big problem. Methamphetamine is not so much a problem in lots of other parts of the country like it is here. So anyway, thank you all.